All right, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are literally unpacking one of the most fundamental mysteries of human behavior. How do we actually discern right from wrong? So consider this your student guide to the mechanics of the human conscience. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with absolute versus relative morality, move into how your conscience works, then get natural moral law explained, and finally, wrap up with overcoming vices with virtues. Section 1. Absolute versus relative morality. So this is the grand debate of human behavior, right? Are the rules of right and wrong fixed or are they flexible? On the left side here, we have absolute morality. This is the idea that some actions are just inherently right or wrong, completely regardless of the context. For instance, an absolutist views taking a life, such as killing or abortion, as always wrong, period. But then on the right is relative morality. Here, right and wrong depend heavily on the circumstances. Under this relative framework, an action like abortion might actually be accepted depending on the specific, unique situation. Let's lock in the terminology for a second. An absolutist is a person who subscribes to that first view. They rely on a strict, unchanging framework. If an action is wrong, it is wrong yesterday, today, tomorrow, and literally in every conceivable situation. The context simply doesn't alter the morality of the act. No gray areas. Now, in complete contrast to that, a relativist is someone whose moral compass relies entirely on the specific situation at hand. For them, morality isn't this rigid list of undeniable rules. It's much more of a flexible assessment of context, intentions, and outcomes. It's fluid, you know? The right choice in one situation might be the totally wrong choice in another. Section 2. How your conscience works. Let's move on and see how this builds, because now that we've looked at the external rules, we really need to transition inward. Our conscience is basically our internal Jiminy Cricket. It's the tool we use to reason between right and wrong. And it fundamentally consists of two parts, knowledge and action. We use our knowledge to decide what is good or bad, and then, we have to actually choose how to act. The very fact that we can deliberate like this, that's powerful evidence that we have free will. But let me ask you something directly. Think about a time you felt that sudden, heavy pang of guilt in the pit of your stomach. Why exactly do we feel that? It's a completely universal human experience, but what is the actual mechanical cause of it happening within our conscience? Picture your conscience like a perfectly calibrated scale. On one side, you've got your knowledge, what you internally know for a fact to be right or wrong. On the other side, you have your action, what you actually end up doing. Guilt is literally the friction produced when those two sides are out of balance. When your actions don't align with your internal knowledge, the scale tips. And that heavy psychological weight you feel, that's guilt. It's just your internal alarm system telling you, hey, your actions didn't match your knowledge. To really understand where this internal compass comes from, we can look at the Catholic perspective. St. Paul famously said that the law is written on our hearts. And this is the profound belief that the conscience is a God-given ability. It's not just some social construct we made up, it's viewed as the literal voice of God within us. Because God has already hardwired this knowledge into our hearts, it naturally informs our conscience and guides our moral choices. Section 3. Natural moral law explained. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. What if your conscience isn't just a personal, fleeting feeling, but an actual way to tap into a universal truth? That is the core concept of natural moral law. It's an overarching, universal, and absolute system for moral decisions. Think of it like a massive broadcasting tower, and our individual conscience is simply the receiver that picks up the signal of this absolute law. The great philosopher and theologian St. Thomas Aquinas formulated this idea perfectly. He stated that natural law is known precisely by using our conscience to discern right from wrong. And for Aquinas, this wasn't just about human psychology. No way. He argued that the very existence of natural moral law is absolute proof of a good God who created the universe, a God who actively gave humans the built-in ability to know good from evil. So, let's break down how this works as an absolute guide. If you believe the conscience comes directly from God, it means God explicitly equipped us to distinguish good from evil. And here's the really fascinating part. Because it's God-given, a true conscience fundamentally cannot make a wrong decision. In theory, if every single human listened perfectly to this pure internal compass, the amount of evil and suffering in the world would drastically drop. Section 4. Overcoming vices with virtues. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we are shifting to the most practical, micro-level application for you. Look at the stark distinction between virtues and vices. Virtues are those positive attitudes we want, like generosity or patience. Vices are the selfish character traits we all constantly battle. But the critical takeaway here, virtues are not default settings. You're not just born with them pre-installed. They have to be actively, intentionally developed to defeat our natural selfish vices. So the big question, how do we actually develop these virtues? Well, we are fundamentally changed by our life experiences. And yes, that absolutely includes suffering. Suffering acts as a powerful catalyst. For instance, experiencing poor health can acutely build the virtue of compassion for others who are unwell because you finally truly understand their pain. Witnessing poverty might spark the virtue of generosity. Making good moral choices when we are going through hardship literally rewires us. It helps us identify the areas of our character that we desperately need to improve, and it turns our pain into positive, lasting qualities. So, the crucial point is applying this. Here is your highly practical step-by-step guide for your daily moral struggles. Step 1. You face a challenge or experience suffering. Step 2. You use your conscience to look inward and identify the selfish vice that's tempting you in that exact moment. Maybe it's greed or maybe it's anger. Step 3. You actively choose to develop a positive virtue like compassion or generosity to crush that specific vice. You use your internal knowledge to balance out your actions. Which brings us to the end of our explainer and leaves you with this one vital question to ask yourself today. The compass is built in. The ability to know right from wrong is already there inside you. The scale of knowledge and action is just waiting to be balanced. So, are you actually listening to the law written on your heart? Really think about that the next time you face a difficult choice. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.